In the thick, isolated woods of Arizona, something unexplainable happened one November night. Travis Walton, a logger working deep in the forest, vanished without a trace, right before the eyes of his terrified coworkers. They say he was taken by a strange glowing craft that hovered above the treetops in complete silence. For 5 days he was gone with no sign of life, until he mysteriously reappeared, dazed and shaken with a story so chilling it defies belief. What happened to Travis Walton during those lost days? Was it an elaborate hoax or something not of this world? Join us as we dig deep into the abduction that still haunts the small town of Snowflake, where questions linger and the truth remains just out of reach. Welcome to Tales from the Graves, where shadows lurk and whispers echo.
Join us as we delve into the unknown, exploring tales of mystery, horror, and the supernatural.
Be prepared to journey into the darkness, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jess.
Together, we're the Grave Sisters, and we'll be your guides as we unearth the strange and unusual.
So find your flashlight, grab your shovel, and let's dig in.
The following podcast is rated for mature audiences.
It may contain graphic scenes of violence and explicit language that some may find disturbing.
Listener discretion is advised.
Hey there, and welcome back, our beloved gravediggers, to episode 20. We are no longer teenagers, all grown up and doing good, I guess. And, Jen is here. Say hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
So I had like a tooth pulled this week, and my mouth is still kind of fucked up from it because I played video games with my friends last night and was screaming a whole lot because, of course, horror games. So I sound...
So Jen just sounds
real derpy.
Jen sounds a little funky right now because she had dental surgery. So I'm going to be doing a lot of talking. I'm not going to apologize for it. So
never do.
Never do and never will. But today we have a really cool topic that we'll be discussing. Do you believe in aliens?
Jessica, I don't think it's necessarily a question of do you believe in aliens anymore, because like the government came out and they're like, aliens exist. And
do you personally?
Well, yeah, I mean, the universe is way too big for us to be the only intelligent life forms. And I'm not even talking like humanoid intelligence level, like, you know, people today. I'm talking just like there's probably some alien fish somewhere in the universe, and it doesn't really look like any fish we've ever seen. We know more about outer space than we do our own oceans, by the way.
Which is really freaking scary, honestly.
Yeah.
But, well, back to what we're doing. So today, I will be covering one of the most famous alien abduction stories. Have you ever heard of the name Travis Walton?
Yeah, actually, when you were doing your intro, I was like, I've seen episodes on TV about this guy.
Yes.
And it's the whole, like, aliens dude from History Channel.
Mm-hmm. Travis Walton, his abduction case is one of the most infamous and extensively documented UFO abduction stories in history. It occurred in 1975 in the forests of Arizona, and Walton's experience has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film, Fire in the Sky. But despite the controversy and the skepticism surrounding the case, Walton and his fellow witnesses have maintained the veracity of their account for nearly 5 decades. This detailed report explores the timeline of the incident and the key players involved, the investigation that follows, and the broader implications of Walton's claims in the context of ufology and paranormal research.
I'm sorry. ufology? There's actually like a study.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if
I did not know
if I
that.
wasn't doing what I do for my day job, I would probably be like, I don't know, a demonologist or a ufologist or something, because I love this shit. But in Arizona, on November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton was just 22 years old, and he was a logger working as part of a 7-man crew for the U.S. Forest Service in the Sitgreaves National Forest near Snowflake, Arizona, which I thought was a weird name for a place in Arizona because, hello,
yeah.
it's hot.
It's Arizona. It's hot.
It's like a freaking desert there, basically.
Well, I mean, there are mountains in the desert that still have snow on their caps, just because it's way up there. It's cooler, kind of deal. So there's that to chew on, I guess.
Well, the Sitgreaves National Forest area is known for its dense pine forest and mountainous terrain, offering the perfect seclusion for a day's hard labor. The logging crew, consisting of Mike Rogers, who was like the foreman or the crew leader, Travis Walton, and 5 other workers named Ken Peterson, John Goulet, Steve Pierce, Alan Dallas, and Dwayne Smith. They were all finishing up their day clearing trees in the Turkey Springs area, and the men were all local to the small town of Snowflake and had worked together for quite some time. I mean, it was grueling work, but it was a routine. I mean, as dusk began to fall, the crew piled up into Roger's truck to head back to town. So they all carpooled so that, to save gas, it's just a lot easier if they all pile up in one place, Easy peasy.
And what also probably means that there aren't as many vehicles on site to potentially get hit by trees.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
well, at approximately 6 p.m., as the crew drove down the rough dirt road towards the main highway, something strange caught their attention. Off in the distance, through the trees, they saw a bright light. Initially, they assumed it was a plane or like a helicopter or something like that. That could have been perhaps conducting some kind of search and rescue operation. I mean, they were in a national forest. People go missing all the time. So that could have been a very logical reason as to why there could have been lights in the forest. However, as they drew closer, it became clear that it was no ordinary aircraft. Hovering about 20 feet above the ground in a small clearing was a glowing disc-shaped object. The craft was described as being around 8 feet high and 20 feet in diameter. Travis described it later as it looked like 2 pie pans stacked on top of each other, kind of, with like a dome on top. So like your quintessential, flying saucer. Yeah.
okay.
So it was emitting a bright light and it was pulsing. And it seemed like it was changing colors from like blue to white to yellow. The entire crew was stunned, and Rogers brought the truck to a halt about 100 feet from the object. While the other men remained inside the truck, Travis Walton, driven by his curiosity, which I'm not going to lie, I would probably do the same freaking thing, impulsively jumped out and ran toward the craft. According to his account and the witnesses, he was drawn to the object by an irresistible sense of wonder. Same. Though it would be a decision that he would later regret. Same, probably, if it happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, one of our friend Holly, she said that like on her bucket list, it is her life goal to get abducted by aliens.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I think it would be cool. But anyway.
I think it'd be cool. I think that'd be bad.
But Travis's friends were all yelling and like banging on the windows, trying to get his attention to come back and lure him back into the truck, but to no avail, because he was just.
It sounds like me and Brandon trying to lure Loki back into the house from the backyard. He's just like, but out of one, I'm like,
the dog's like,
yeah, I want to roll around in chicken poop because it smells great to me and I don't care. And then like, you're getting a bath. You're going to get a bath.
Right?
So.
Well, As Travis Walton approached the craft, he stood beneath it, staring up at the glowing disc. And without warning, a bright beam of light shot out from the bottom of the UFO and struck Walton in the chest. According to the other guys, the force of the beam was so strong that it lifted Walton into the air and hurled him backward several feet. He landed on the ground motionless. So the guys start to freaking panic, and they thought that he had been killed.
I mean, that
And
sounds...
so their instincts kicked in, and they were like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Toodaloo.
Right? So they panicked, thinking that Walton had been killed, and they fled the scene in the truck. But after driving for a short distance, Rogers, the foreman, feeling guilty for leaving his friend behind, convinced the others to return to the site and search for Walton. However, when they got back to the clearing, the craft and Travis were gone.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I mean, they were at a loss and had no idea what to do. They were absolutely terrified and in way over their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fearing the worst, the crew drove back to Snowflake. They pulled over at the first payphone that they could find and immediately reported the incident to the local authorities. Sheriff Marlon Gillespie and Deputy Ellison met with the men and were initially skeptical of their story. I mean, a lot of people probably would be.
Probably being like, boys, have you been smoking the devil's lettuce?
That's exactly what they thought.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because Gillespie instantly started looking for beer bottles and drug paraphernalia. Of course, he didn't find anything because you've got to think they're working with like chainsaws and heavy machinery and stuff. You don't want to...
Girl, that don't mean shit.
I mean, none of the guys did any of that stuff. They even like took drug tests and all sorts of stuff. Nothing in their system whatsoever. But, I mean, he didn't find anything. However, given the crew's obvious distress and the fact that Walton was missing, they organized a search of the area the following day. Even though it didn't seem like anything nefarious happened, the authorities were still very skeptical, as they should be, you know. I mean, there was no evidence of Travis being there or anything. So, news of Travis's abduction spreads like wildfire. Everybody was talking about what happened, you know, typical small town gossip.
Yeah.
Like in our small town, you can say a curse word at school and then your mama finds out by the time you get home. You know, that kind of small town vibe. This is where a massive manhunt starts. The search party, which included law enforcement officers, volunteers, cadaver dogs, and even helicopters, I mean, they scoured the forest but found no trace of Walton whatsoever. So there were no signs of the struggle, no footprints leading away from the site, and no evidence to suggest what had happened to him whatsoever. I mean, at all. So over the next few days, as news of Walton's disappearance spread, speculation ran wild. Some believed that the crew had killed Travis and fabricated the UFO story to cover up a crime.
Oh, wow.
While others thought that it was a prank gone wrong. But while searching, the cops kept hammering the logging crew and saying, if you just tell us where the body is, then we could stop this charade. But the men just kept sticking to their story, never wavering from what they had stated. While on the scene, they even had a Geiger counter and high levels of radiation were found in that clearing that they took them to. It was off the charts with how strong the radiation was. That showed the searchers that there was something out in the woods. They couldn't figure out what it was, but there was something out there. By day 2, the media quickly picked up the story, and soon the entire nation was captivated by the mystery. Reporters and journalists from all over the world, not just the area, the world, flooded Snowflake, Arizona. Reporters aren't the only ones who were curious. You can always tell what a government car looked like, and there have been verified accounts of men in black, wink, wink, showing up to cases like this. The documentary that I watched on Discovery Plus about the Travis Walton case said that some of the people were looking around the area and they saw like the guys in the dark suits wearing the sunglasses. They pull up in the crappy government vehicle. Like it literally looked like the government people were there to see, okay, maybe it really was an alien. Wink, wink. We might have to do a Men in Black episode later, just saying.
Well, I mean, there are cases of Men in Black where they come in and then you don't ever really see them leave. But no one remembers that they were there. So,
but with every day, every hour, the crew is feeling the pressure to find Travis. The authorities want to close it and name it a homicide. There were 2 men on the crew that everyone was kind of suspicious of, Alan Dallas and John Goulet. It was known that Alan really wasn't a big fan of Travis, but Mike Rogers, the foreman of the crew, stood up for the men and even offered to do a polygraph to prove that the 2 men had nothing to do with Travis's disappearance. All the crew agreed that they would do it as well. So on day 5, they all did it. Several times. They gave them multiple polygraph tests to see if there were like any kind of inconsistencies with their stories. So they got the results back after asking the same questions over and over, and all passed every test except Alan on the last test ended up being inconclusive. The only reason that he didn't quote unquote pass his is because he got pissed off from the continuous questioning and yanked the wires off of himself and left the room because he was just tired of it. He was basically like, look, I told you my story. I've answered these questions over and over. I'm done. You know what I'm saying and just deal with it, basically. But late on day 5, a phone call came into Travis's sister's home. Travis's brother-in-law, Grant, answered. He originally thought the phone call was a prank because on the other line was a raspy, tired voice that said, "It's Travis. Come and get me." So, now, 5 days after his disappearance, on the night of November 10th, 1975, Travis Walton suddenly reappeared. He was disoriented and weak, and he had lost like 10 pounds in those 5 days. He looked awful. But he was found at a gas station near Heber, Arizona, which was about 30 miles from where he had vanished. And Walton later recounted his harrowing experience to both the authorities and the public. He reached out to APRO, which is the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization that's based in Phoenix, Arizona, which I thought was really cool. Well, according to Walton, whenever he approached the craft, he heard a thrumming or a pounding sound surrounding him. He was frozen in place and then struck by the beam of light and lost consciousness. To help him unlock what memories were hidden, he underwent hypnosis, much like Betty and Barney Hill did whenever they were abducted, which we'll probably cover their case at a later date too. So, when he woke up after being struck by the light, he found himself inside a strange, dimly lit room lying on a table. His first thought was that he was in a very small hospital room. Of course, you lose consciousness, you think your friends take you to the hospital. Okay, cool, you're in the hospital. But as his vision cleared, he realized that the beings surrounding him were not human doctors of any kind. Walton described the entities as small, about 4 to 5 feet tall, with large heads, oversized dark eyes, and small, frail bodies. The skin was pale and smooth, and they wore simple, form-fitting clothing. This is like what most people think of when someone mentions the word aliens, basically. Like the Greys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Little Greys.
Yeah.
Not the little green men.
Martians.
Yeah.
Well, these creatures had no emotion on their faces whatsoever. and Walton was overcome with fear and attempted to fight them off, grabbing like a nearby object and swinging at the beings. And he was in instant fight or flight mode.
Makes sense.
Right? I mean, I'd be losing my ever-loving mind. However, they quickly left the room, and Walton was left alone. Panicking, Travis left the room and wandered through the corridors of the craft, eventually finding himself in a larger, more open area with a single chair. There were points of light that were visible, and it appeared to be kind of like a viewing room or maybe some type of control room. There was a type of panel that appeared to have buttons. He starts pressing buttons, going nuts, trying to find a door or like an escape hatch, something that would help him get out of there. But here, he encountered another humanoid figure, but this one looked more human, tall and muscular. This being, dressed in a sort of helmet and uniform, calmly led Walton to another room that appeared to be kind of like an aircraft hangar, where he saw two other beings that matched the one leading him. But these two didn't have helmets on, so he could clearly see what they looked like. They had blonde hair and blue eyes. They kind of looked Scandinavian in nature. Ufologists have actually kind of referred to those type of beings as the Nordic aliens. Which, hello, hi. Alexander Skarsgård can abduct me anytime. Hello. But all three of them kept him moving along to another room where they tried to place Travis on the table. Travis realized what was happening and hid his fight or flight response yet again and started trying to tear away from the beings. The beings were surprisingly strong and had no problem getting him back on the table. They placed a mask over his face, and he lost consciousness yet again. When he regained consciousness, he was lying on the ground outside, near the gas station where he was found, which was pretty cool. I mean, at least they gave him some kind of convenience, you know. The UFO was gone. And Travis had no recollection of how in the world he got there. Now comes the aftermath. So, of course, when he came back, it was a media bonanza. Everyone was going nuts. So the town was flooded with media attention. And after his return, Travis Walton underwent a series of medical examinations, including psychological evaluations, of course, so they would figure out if he was crazy or not, and many polygraph tests. Now, the polygraph tests administered to Travis and the other members of the logging crew became central part of the investigation. Initially, the crew members all passed their polygraph tests, lending credibility to their story. However, Walton's own results were more controversial, as they should be. While he passed most of the tests, there were inconsistencies in others, leading to widespread debate about the authenticity of his account. But despite these doubts, Walton has remained steadfast in his story, maintaining that he was abducted by extraterrestrial beings. He has undergone several polygraph tests over the years, many of which he passed, which is awesome. But supporters of Walton argue that the consistency of his account over the decades, as well as the corroboration of the witnesses, makes his story one of the most credible UFO abduction cases on record. But with him telling a story also comes the skeptics.
Oh, yeah.
And people with alternative explanations, if you know what I'm saying. As with any UFO-related case, there has been no shortage of skepticism surrounding Travis Walton's abduction. Critics have proposed various alternative explanations, ranging from hallucinations to an elaborate hoax orchestrated by the logging crew. Tons of townfolk thought it was completely faked, so much so that a man named Philip Klass, who was supposedly the most well-renowned UFO debunker in history, said that UFOs are not a serious thing, and they are definitely a myth. He was very smart, and he was a journalist, but he didn't buy anything that Travis was saying whatsoever. but he dove in feet first into his own research. He said that he thought that the loggers came up with a lie to end their contract. Because I guess they have to sign a contract for this month to this month before the weather comes in or whatever. But the thing is that the guys had finished like over 80% of their contract and they were near their completion date.
Yeah.
They were almost completely done. So why just get out of their contract and miss out on some money, you know?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, they were needing it to get done before the weather changed. But once the incident happened, there was no way that they could finish the contract because the guys were so freaking spooked out about what happened that they said that they wouldn't go back out there. I mean, one or two would be like, okay, sure, we can go back out. But if you can't get all of them back out there, that's money lost, you know. Even if it was a hoax, how in the world did the foreman, Mike Rogers, how could he convince the other guys to go along with it? 6 other guys like, hey, you want to pull a prank on everybody? I mean,
basically like the whole world kind of.
Yes.
That seems excessive. Like I could see pulling a prank on one member of the logging company, but not to the point where you go missing for 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a prank at that point.
Yeah, it's not a prank. It's not a hoax. So I think that's bullshit reason is like he couldn't convince the other guys to do a hoax. So, I mean, he was not that type of guy that would try and convince the guys to do something like that. Well, some other skeptics believed that Travis may have experienced a psychological event, such as like sleep paralysis or like a dissociative fugue state, which could explain the vivid details of his encounter. But others even suggest that the entire story was concocted as a means of gaining fame or financial compensation. However, Walton and his crew have consistently denied those accusations. I mean, they were just hometown loggers. Why just come up with some bullshit story for money? I mean, they didn't really make any money out of that. They didn't make any money out of logging because they ended their contract early because of the situation. So, I mean, okay. Well, but the town's opinion of Travis's abduction changed when his book came out. The Walton Experience, which I kind of want to read, was the first book written by a UFO abductee. It stood the test of time. It was so well written that he even presented arguments for his case and against his case to make people see the truth. His story was so profound that it even caught the eye of Hollywood. Paramount Pictures released Fire in the Sky, which was a movie based off of Travis's book. And not many people followed the media coverage or read the book, but the movie made a lot more people aware of his account, and it opened people's eyes to the possibility of life elsewhere, which I think is pretty freaking awesome. But with Travis being pushed back into the spotlight once again, guess who popped his ugly little head out? Philip Klass. Again.
Oh, is he that tool bag?
Yeah, he's that jerk that was like, no, he's lying. But Travis did have the last laugh with this guy. He called out Klass on Larry King. Travis is quoted saying, which I think this is a really good quote from him, "This is typical of the sort of reasoning pattern this man uses when attacking all UFO cases by equating the absence of evidence to be the evidence of absence." I thought it was really cool. But in a later interview, Travis said, this is a direct quote from him, "This was really a turning point in my life, what happened here. It is amazing how much time has gone by. Little did I know my life would never be the same. I had a choice after this incident happened. Could I just shut up about it and hope people would forget about it and it'll go away? Or I defend myself and set the record straight." He wasn't going to let anybody walk all over him and just say that he was full of it. He was like, look, no, this happened and it's not bull. He stood up for himself, which I thought was really good. All of these men have been called liars and naysayers, but through the years, they never wavered once. I commend these men for sticking to their story no matter what. I think it's a really good thing. But with recent government videos put out, like the Tic Tac video and stuff, the craft.
Oh, no.
You've never seen the Tic Tac video?
No.
Oh my God. I'm going to have to show it to you.
Okay.
Okay. So with some of those government videos being released out into the world, we have seen several stories that establish that UFOs are more real than anyone imagined. And the government officially acknowledged it. Finally. And I mean, I couldn't be happier about that. Well, the case has also played a significant role in shaping public perceptions of alien abductions, influencing both popular culture and the field of ufology. Travis Walton's story, alongside with other famous cases like that of Betty and Barney Hill, has helped to establish the archetype of the alien abduction phenomenon, complete with the classic gray alien figure that is now ubiquitous with UFO encounters. But the Travis Walton abduction case remains one of the most controversial and intriguing UFO stories ever recorded. While skeptics continue to question the authenticity of Travis's account, the consistency of his story over nearly 50 years, you gotta think, 50 years, oh my gosh, coupled with the corroborating testimony of his fellow witnesses, makes it very difficult to dismiss outright. Whether the result of a genuine extraterrestrial encounter, a psychological anomaly, or an elaborate hoax, Travis Walton's experience continues to captivate the imagination and fuel the ongoing debate over the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. But in the broader context of ufology, the Walton case is a reminder to a lot of people of how little we still know about the phenomena that people report experiencing all over the world. As government disclosures and public interest in UFOs grow, perhaps one day we will have more answers. I mean, until then, the mystery of Travis Walton's 5 days in November 1975 endures. So, with that being said, do you think Travis was telling the truth? Do you think he's full of shit?
I think he's telling the truth. I know people do weird, stupid things for money. But I mean, this was the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like today a lot of photos and videos and things of that, like that kind of evidence, is being hushed for the most part. But who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, that I think it's very plausible. I don't think that he would have lied about it. And in the event that it's not real, I would say that someone did a really elaborate prank. But then why go through all that trouble?
Mm-hmm. Why would those guys taint their names and their reputation just for a joke? That's what I thought. And I watched a whole bunch of interviews with Travis Walton, and he just seemed like a homegrown man. Just your average, everyday guy. He doesn't seem like he would be the type to lie just for lying's sake, honestly. But what about you, gravediggers? Do you believe in aliens? Do you think Travis was lying about his abduction, or do you think that he was telling the truth? Have you been abducted by aliens? Please email us. We want to know.
Girl, I think if someone who listens to our podcast was abducted by aliens, I don't think they'd reach out. They probably have their own book deals and stuff, okay?
I'd still want to talk to them. All right. That's it for us today, Gravediggers. Make sure you reach out to us on our Instagram, our Discord, our YouTube, any listening podcast platform. We would love to hear from you. Like, rate, review, all that stuff. Until then, we're going to let this one rest, and we will see you on the other side.
Spooky.
And with episode 20 coming to a close, that means we are finishing season 1.
Yep. So next week, you won't get your regularly scheduled Wednesday update. However, we are going to have a special bonus Halloween episode. So definitely look forward to that. And just because we're not going to be around for like 2 weeks
doesn't mean you can't listen and you can't share and you can't enjoy the special treat we're giving you for the trick-or-treat season.
You are all about them trick-or-treaters, let me tell you.
Dude, it's candy and costumes and an excuse to dress like a slut.
I would much prefer looking like some kind of witch from a swamp. I want to strike fear in the hearts of men and little children everywhere. I know there's no real difference between that and every day for me. They look at me, they're like, oh my God.
What is that?
I am both intrigued and horrified at the same time.
But with that, we do want to thank you so much for coming along on this journey with us as we just wrap up our first season, and we will be back with season 2 with our regularly scheduled program.
Wow, you
After
butchered
Halloween.
that, man.
Regular scheduled program.
Regular. We regular over
The regular
here.
degular scheduled program. And keep on hitting that like button. Keep hitting that rate, review, share. We really do appreciate you, Gravediggers. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, we'll be back in time for like Thanksgiving. That way you have something to listen to while you're forced to be with your family.
Yeah. Sounds great. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
If you like what you heard, please feel free to follow, like, rate, and review Tales from the Graves podcast on your preferred listening platform.
We also would like to know what you think and what topic you suggest we unearth next. Email us at talesfromthegravespod@gmail.com or reach out to us at Tales from the Graves podcast on Instagram.
And if you have Discord, join us in the graveyard. The link is in our bio on our Instagram as well as this listening platform. Thanks again, Gravediggers.
I guess it's more creepy because it's aliens, but whatever, you know.